Welcome back to another Forge College Explainer. Today, we're diving straight into performance trade-offs and synthesis for the EVM and SVM architecture comparison. Now, if you followed our last lesson, you know we spent a ton of time digging into runtime profiling. We were basically code detectives out there hunting for clues in execution times and gas costs. But today we're officially trading in our magnifying glasses for spreadsheets and coffee, transitioning from being profiling detectives to making actual boardroom-ready architectural decisions. So, let's jump right in. We're going to take all those scattered clues and observations and synthesize them into something you can confidently present to your team or your stakeholders. Here's our quick roadmap for the day. We're moving from profiling to synthesis, exploring a really useful factory assembly line mental model, mapping out our EVM and SVM bottlenecks, estimating impact and cost, and building that ultimate one-pager before we wrap up with final recommendations. Let's get to it.
Section 1. Profiling to synthesis. Moving from profiling to synthesis is literally the most critical pivot you're going to make in any optimization journey. It's where your raw data actually becomes clear direction.
Remember the hot path from our last explainer? You know, those specific, repeatable sequences that just completely eat up the bulk of your execution time and gas costs? Well, it's super easy for developers to fall into the trap of wanting to optimize every single line of code. But honestly, the data almost always points to an 80-20 rule. A massive chunk of your costs is usually hiding in just one or two sequences. Finding them is step one. Deciding what to do with them, that's what we're tackling today.
So we're officially turning in our detective badges and stepping right into the manager's office. Profiling told us where the time and gas are going. Synthesis is all about action. What do we change first? What architectural trade-offs are we actually willing to swallow? And crucially, exactly how are we going to justify those choices? Because let's be real here, your CTO doesn't just want a long list of slow functions. They want a defensible, bulletproof plan of attack, and ideally, one that doesn't cost $1 million to implement.
Section 2. The factory assembly line. To really wrap our heads around what's happening under the hood, let's look at Web3 runtimes like they're a physical factory floor.
Picture a transaction is a product rolling down a conveyor belt. In the EVM factory, you're relying heavily on these massive, slow stamping presses to write your data. Think of those as your storage writes. They take a ton of time and energy to cycle. But over in the SVM factory, totally different story. It uses an army of highly specialized, super chatty subcontractors. These are your system calls or your cross-program invocations, CPIs. Individually, they are lightning fast, but they add administrative overhead every single time they have to stop, call a meeting, and coordinate with each other.
Section 3. EVM versus SVM bottlenecks. Let's take this whole factory analogy and map it directly to the profiling data you're actually going to see in your code.
The real trick here is knowing exactly how to read the audit. Over in EVM land, if your trace shows a high frequency of single, really expensive operations, like spamming SSTR commands directly to the blockchain, well, you've got a stamping press problem. The fix? You've got to batch those writes or compress your state so that press doesn't have to cycle nearly as often. Now, for the SVM, if your trace is showing high latency because of a crazy amount of CPIs, you've got a subcontractor coordination problem. To fix that, you need to reduce your account churn or maybe merge some program logic so those subcontractors aren't constantly in meetings talking to each other.
Section 4. Estimating impact and cost. Okay, we know what's breaking down on the factory floor, right? Now we have to evaluate what it's actually going to take to fix it.
This quote right here is exactly how you explain these complex trade-offs to non-technical stakeholders. When you tell them, hey, we're upgrading a stamping press, what you really mean is a localized code tweak in the EVM, like fixing a storage layout. It's nicely confined, but it yields massive per-transaction savings. But when you say we're consolidating subcontractors, you're talking about a major architectural shift in the SVM, like moving logic all into a single program. Sure, it might preserve developer ergonomics, but you are absolutely going to need significantly more testing across those integration boundaries. To make these decisions, we use three lenses: classifying the bottleneck, pulling the raw metric evidence, and weighing the implementation trade-offs. This helps us build a highly defensible priority matrix, just like the one you see here. Check out Priority 1, reducing storage writes. It's got high impact and medium effort, backed up by hard metrics like saving 25% on EVM gas. Compare that to Priority 3, batching CPIs. The impact is high, sure, but the effort is also super high. You always want to snag those quick wins before you commit to Priority 3's massive architectural overhauls.
Section 5. Building
the one-pager. All right, it is time to step into the boardroom and deliver the ultimate artifact. Because let's face it, executives stop reading after page 1 anyway.
We know where the time is going, but what do we actually fix first? To answer this definitively, whether it's for your capstone project or straight to your boss, you need a solid, reproducible, 5-step workflow. We are not just guessing here. We want a process that leaves zero room for debate.
Sticking to these 5 steps is going to make your recommendations absolutely bulletproof. First up, Step A, gather and normalize your metric evidence. Then, Step B, identify candidate actions and map them directly back to those metrics. You must ensure every single recommendation is backed by at least 2 raw data points, no exceptions. Next, Step C, estimate the impact and the implementation cost. Step D, prioritize and format that core table we just looked at. And finally, Step E, finalize your narrative and attach your raw artifacts so anyone can come in and verify your logic.
So, what is a one-page synthesis? It's exactly what it sounds like. Short, punchy, and utterly backed by data. The golden rule here is to keep it under 1 page. You'll also want to include a section for risks and mitigations, because every optimization has a trade-off. And this is absolutely crucial. Attach your trace files using a clean, reproducible naming convention. Something like profile, year, month, day, environment, .njson. That way, future maintainers, or whoever happens to be grading your capstone, can easily follow your logic right down to the raw numbers.
Section 6, Final Recommendations. Let's wrap up everything we've covered today about synthesizing these architectural trade-offs. The whole goal here is to shift your mindset from just observing problems to methodically solving them.
If you master this framework, you aren't just taking shots in the dark with your optimizations. You're making calculated, highly defensible engineering decisions. To recap, zero in on those hot paths. Use our factory assembly line analogy to figure out if you're dealing with an EVM stamping press or an SVM subcontractor coordination issue. Always anchor your claims with at least 2 supporting metrics. Attack that high-impact, low-effort, low-hanging fruit first. And please never hide the risks. Document your trade-offs explicitly so everyone is on exactly the same page.
So here is the million-dollar question to leave you with today. What will your synthesis reveal about your architecture? Are you building a streamlined, hyper-efficient factory? Or are you just managing pure chaos? Thank you so much for joining this Forge College Explainer. I really hope this framework gives you the confidence to take raw data and spin it into brilliant architectural strategy. Be sure to head over to forge.college to master the next step, using this one-pager to frame your final EVM versus SVM comparative analysis, plus a ton of other awesome Web3 topics. Catch you next time.